You are listening to Burn the Candle at Both Ends. In this program, when I ask the question, what are the cues we're working too much and what do we do about it? I had no idea what kind of responses I was going to get. And I'm glad for that because it's interesting to see how the people that are coming together actually think and feel. And we had nobody on today's panel in the camp of this work hard, figure out how to manage your energy so well and so specifically that we could go for 3 months on just a few hours of sleep while we finish an extra project that is really exciting to us. And to me, I find that interesting, that particular view interesting, because I've done that before. Now, can I do that forever or years or even, 6 months? No, I cannot do that for 6 months. I wear myself out. For a while, though, when time doesn't matter, when there's so much passion and energy, that's possible. And that's going to be in another show someday because it's not what our panel today talked about. Our panel, Dr. Ryan, Julie, and Palma, they actually took a different approach in the sense that we're swinging the pendulum a little bit the other way, and we're looking at intention, and we're looking at specific action, and we're looking at slowing down. So in just a few minutes, we will get to the program where you will hear Dr. Ryan Marchman, who is a doctor of chiropractic, and he runs an active chiropractic practice. He travels to speak and teach on the subjects of health and human behavior and human potential. You'll also hear Julie Thenell, who is a nutritionist that builds healthy eating patterns for her clients to withstand the stress of life transitions, reinventions, and handling the unexpected in our lives. And then Palma Michel is an advocate on how mindfulness and meditation can improve leadership, creativity, and overall well-being. And so, right after this, you will hear from this week's panel.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
So this concept of burning the candle at both ends, I can't wait to hear your stories about it. Before we hear the stories and we actually dig in and talk in depth about it, I have asked each one of you to come prepared with a 2-minute answer to this question. And Julie, you're going to lead us off. Julie, what are the cues we are working too much and what do we do about it?
I don't think that we're always the best one to be able to identify that we're burning the candle at both ends. I think we often have to look outside of ourselves. That self-awareness is great, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we were all tuned in enough to be able to say, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing, this is my behavior. But I do think sometimes we need to look outside of ourselves, look to friends, family, coworkers, to give us some clues as to what our behavior is looking like. A couple questions to ask ourselves. Are others in our lives being neglected? Is it children, parents, friends? Are we not spending as much time with them? And we can go to family members or friends to learn that. Or are we losing sight of that big picture at work? Are we getting too focused on the detail? And of course, that can come from coworkers lending some input or a boss. What is the quality of our decision making? Are we just not as sharp as we could be or have been in the past in our decision making? And that too can come from boss, coworkers, family members. And finally, I would say, what does our personal health look like? Is our personal appearance suffering? Do we look tired? Is that shirt just a little more wrinkled than it normally is? And again, we may not always see that because when we're in that busyness, we're overlooking it. From a nutritional standpoint, I can tell clients to do a better job with their hydration, to eat balanced meals, to get more exercise, to take some rest. But a lot of times that just adds to the stress because it's one more thing to do. Instead, I'm going to pose some questions that we can look at. Are you taking time to eat? Are you missing meals? When you eat, is it in front of a computer? Is it at your desk? Is it in the car? When you're running between meetings? Are you relying on that glass of wine or beer at the end of the day to unwind? Because oftentimes that's a coping mechanism in that whole stress response of I need to be on for tomorrow, but I can't turn myself off quite at the end of the day. Are you missing meals with family or friends? Are you giving up on invitations? And also, what do your meals look like? Are they energy bars? Are they packaged goods that come out of the refrigerator or the freezer? If there is one thing I would encourage people to do that they could implement today, that is for your next meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, put your butt in a chair, put your feet on the floor, and spend a minimum of 30 minutes over a meal. I will say that's one of the most difficult things that I have to contend with because I like food, it fuels me, but I've got a long to-do list in my life and I'm eager to get to those things. But until we are actually sitting in a chair, our body is in that parasympathetic mode where we are in that state of rest, we don't get good nutrient value out of our food. So with that, I'm eager to hear what Ryan or Palma have to say.
All right, Ryan, will you answer that question for us? What are the cues we're working too much and what do we do about it?
I've said before, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask. So ask yourself, are you neglecting people you care about? Are you neglecting duties at work because you're too tired to do them? Have you lost sight of the big picture? Things like Julie said. And to me, that is a symptom of a person who is not living according to his or her highest values. If you are taking on too much responsibility at work, for example, and if you're injected your boss's values into your life to the point that you're neglecting your own, I wouldn't call it a symptom of overwork. I would call it a symptom of working on the wrong thing. Each of us has 24 hours in a day, right? And whether we're sleeping or eating or laughing or crying or working or playing, we're all doing something for 24 hours. You can't do more or less than anybody else. So what is it that you are doing with that time? And are those doings things that are in support of your highest values? If they are things that are in support of your highest values, you tend to be pulled by inspiration to do them rather than be pushed by motivation or willpower to do them. When you're pushing yourself by willpower and you're relying on motivation, you're prone to burnout because you're living somebody else's life. You're performing somebody else's tasks, trying to fulfill other people's values. My addition to what Julie said would be really tune in to what is valuable to you and spend your time doing that. If you're not, then you're not doing yourself or the other people in your life a highest service. You're not doing your boss the highest service. And whether that's work or play, whether that means spending more time working because you love it and you want to spend less time doing the other crap that drains you, or spending less time working so that you can then do the stuff that you love. Either way, it's going to help to bring you back into the parasympathetic part of life so that you're not constantly stressed and running and trying to make other people happy.
Palma, how would you answer this question?
I mean, for me, it's quite interesting. I work as a mindfulness teacher, in particular, very often in corporates. Kind of a really clear indication for me that someone is sort of working too hard or wrongly in some ways is, and when I suggest to someone to take out 10 minutes a day or even 5 minutes a day for meditation, someone tells me that's absolutely impossible. I cannot find these 5-10 minutes. I'd love to, but maybe I can do this under the shower. I'm already showering. There I have 1 minute. Maybe do it like that. Often really a clear sign that someone needs to look maybe at their schedules in a different way. A second sign often is I meet so many people that are kind of really tired, but at the same time wired and have trouble sleeping. And it's kind of this thing that someone maybe works really late and then they come home, watch TV maybe until midnight or 1 a.m. just to have some me time at the same time, but they're not taking the sleep they desperately need. And then a third indication is often people working really hard or really busy, then they go on holiday, a holiday that they were craving for a long time. First day of the holiday comes and they fall ill. That's a clear sign that they sort of were running sort of more under their reptilian brain and more under the survival modus. There were some really interesting things that both Ryan and Julie shared. Like one is really about creating self-awareness. It all starts by kind of noticing really what's going on with myself. Is it normal that I have absolutely no free time in my days? Is it normal that my muscles on my shoulders are always tense or my neck is tense? Is it normal that I get all kind of pacey and freaked out when and I'm kind of waiting for the bus. All these types of things are sort of indicators that I'm really stressed. The other thing I find interesting really is to not so much talk about time management, but rather energy management. These days, most of us are too busy in one way or the other, and it's kind of almost sort of a pride of being busy. And very often people sit at their desks and they're tired. Maybe their brain is fried because they have done too much multitasking or had too much busyness in their day, but they just think kind of, if I sit there for 1 more hour, I'll get it done. And actually it's not really happening, because if you just push yourself in that moment, there is really no space in your minds for having the creative insights. I usually suggest people to work smarter in a way and manage their energy differently. And when they feel kind of after 90 minutes of productive work, or maybe after 4 hours of work, that they're tired, they should actually really rather take a break. Or if they work for themselves, take half day off and do the things that they're really enjoying. It's really key that people notice sort of when their energy is low, and at that moment, not push harder, but actually take a break and do just something that re-energizes them, be it a breathing break, be it dancing sillily to a song, or just listening to a song on their headphones at work, going outside kind of just for a quick walk, chatting with a colleague, but just doing anything but work during that moment. Mm-hmm. And one key thing for my clients is usually not really the permission of others, but the permission that they give themselves to rest at a certain point. So on a daily basis, during their work days, taking breaks. On a weekly basis, at least not work for 1 day, and also sort of on a yearly basis, plan in sometimes for holidays.
I want to start with this. Both Brian and Julie used the word parasympathetic. I want that defined for people in the event that they don't know what it is.
The nervous system is divided into several sets and subsets. One of those subsets is the autonomic nervous system, which controls all the automatic processes in your body, like your heartbeat and your digestion and your wake and sleep and things like that. That autonomic nervous system has basically two sides. It's like a brake pedal and a gas pedal. The gas pedal is called the sympathetic nervous system, and it is triggered by a fear response, stress response, and it gets things done. If a tiger jumps out of the woods to chase us, we have aroused all the energy available to us to run away or to fight. So the sympathetic nervous system is often called the fight or flight nervous system. The opposite division to that is the parasympathetic nervous system, and that is once the tiger has stopped chasing you or you've defeated it and things go back to normal, you can rest, you can sleep, you can digest food and assimilate because there's not a stressful environment that you need to respond to immediately. So that is the rest and digest nervous system, or parasympathetic. It's basically your predator and prey part of your nervous system. When you're pushing and you're going for something, when you're the predator, you're in sympathetic, right? Whenever you're prey, when you're a cow just munching on some grass, not paying attention, you're parasympathetic. And they require balance. You have to have an equal balance of both.
Oh, this leads right into my next question. So I want to know what you guys think about all of the things out there around biohacking. I'm going to take this supplement so that I can get this much more energy, so that I can go just a little bit longer. And then I'm going to do this other thing so that I can sleep harder and I can sleep less, so I can write that book while I have a full-time job and take care of my family and be the best me I can be all at the same time. What's your response to that?
We are a society that oversupplements. We can get a lot of the nutrients we need through our foods. Granted, food quality is an issue, and that could be a topic for another radio program. We do want that silver bullet. We do want that pill in general to wake us up, to put us to sleep, and that really messes with our system. The more we can do it in a natural approach through relaxation, I love Palma's focus on mindfulness, through good nutrition, balanced meals, good hydration, good quality food, lots of vegetables. That's where we're going to get the nutrients that we need for the body to operate. I started with a client just a couple weeks ago. She takes an over-the-counter sleep aid. I suggested more magnesium in her diet. She said within 2 weeks, she's off the over-the-counter sleep aid, which has stuff in it our bodies aren't meant to process and filter. And she's using a mineral that our body knows how to assimilate.
I want to talk about the importance of doing one thing at a time. Even if it's a lot of one things at a time, it's still one thing at a time. One of the things that I love to do is listen to other radio shows and podcasts. And I save them all up and I walk every day. And when I'm walking, I listen to my podcast. But I forgot the fact that I was actually walking and doing something for myself. And so now it's more half and half. I don't do it all the time because I like my podcast and that's the time I've given myself to do it. I also turn off everything. And when I am walking and I am out in nature, I am out in nature, looking at the streets, seeing what's going on, things like that, because I get a different interaction and a different type of rejuvenation and a different type of inspiration than I do when I'm always focused on the thing that I know I'm called to do. It's great to take a break. What would you guys say around that?
I agree from my experience. I'd like to share probably two things. The one is there's a Harvard study out there that was titled "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." And it basically came to the conclusion that if we do something or think something different than we were doing, then we're also reporting to be unhappy at the same time. And so if we're continuously multitasking and trying to fill our time in the optimum way, doing 5 things at the same time, I also feel we're not doing anything really well. And at the same time, it's really hard to enjoy any of those activities. Because most people, when they're getting into a flow state, they're really immersed in one activity. That's when they're really shining in whatever they're doing. But that's also when they usually feel the happiest, the most alive. And then the other thing is, I find it also interesting for everyone to really reflect on this kind of busying yourself. Why is it impossible to just walk and really feel my feet while I'm walking, or really engaging with nature? Am I afraid of facing my thoughts at the same time, or being with myself, or am I afraid of boredom? Kind of what is it that I'm avoiding, that I'm continuously not present with myself or the activities that I'm doing? And that can be a really, really good indicator for just generally learning something about myself, and kind of maybe things that I might need help on. And that could be sort of the key to the puzzle of all the other sort of burning the candle on both ends.
Several years ago, I worked to switch my vocabulary a bit. We always talk about our busyness and how busy we are. And several years ago, I decided that because it has what seems to be a negative connotation, that I should change that. And now my life is rich and it's full. And when I tell people that it's rich and full, in my heart, I feel like I have more choice over that richness and over that fullness of my days. But busy, sure, I get caught up in that. In general, busyness is that outside, I think, Ryan, you used the word motivation. It's something else is keeping me busy. It's not me making the choice to have a rich and full life. That's really beautifully put, Julie, and I'm going to agree with both of you here. Whether it's busyness or whether it's just a busy mind that's wandering into tasks that you're not involved in right now, both of those are a symptom of working on things that are not the most important to you. There's a rule: if you don't fill your day with high priority actions, it will fill itself with low priority actions. And if you find yourself getting caught up in all this stuff that doesn't really matter to you, then what has happened is you have not set aside the time to do the things that do matter. So if it matters to you to connect to nature, then make that one of your high priority action steps. Because if you don't make it an action step, the void is going to fill with other people's activities, other people's busyness, and you'll be doing things that aren't fulfilling. Your mind will want to be elsewhere.
Have you guys ever read the book, The One Thing? It's a book that came across my radar a long time ago, and it's an easy read and it's a quick read, and it is pretty powerful in the things that it says, because it's a lot of what you're already saying, first of all. Second of all, it's talking about what does balance mean to each individual person. And sometimes somebody might have to go way out and be way involved and detached from everything but the thing they're doing for some period of time. And then that has its own natural rhythm. And then we can find our way back to other things like our family and the way we look and making sure we iron and some of those other things. But if we're out there too long, it's not very good. And if we're bouncing back and forth, it's not very good. And if we're trying to carry it all at the same time, it's not very good, because each of us has our own unique way of approaching this concept of what our one thing is, how do we do that one thing, and making sure we take the time to be able to think about it in addition to time to actually act on it, regardless of the other things that we have chosen to have in our life. And that comes down to the things that we chose, the obligations that we have, come down to our priorities and past choices that we've made. And so when we're thinking about our life and we're so busy we can't even find 5 minutes in our schedule, and we're eating nothing but power bars and extra juice drinks, and we might go to the gym a little bit more, and we might see our chiropractor one extra time to build up our internal resources, whatever we happen to be doing, we still have to be able to set priorities. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What are your tips, ideas, or your own personal practice, whatever is most comfortable for you to share, that we can actually use to look at our own priorities and say, is this really a priority? What makes us want to do this? And do I need to keep doing this?
The values work that I do is inspired in part by Dr. John DeMartini. And if you go to his website, he has a values calculator where you can answer those questions for yourself and really go through and find out what you surround yourself with, what you spend your money on, what you spend your time doing, what you spend your time thinking about that comes into fruition, what's really demonstrated in your life. And I think once you get a clear list of what matters to you the most in a real way, not just in a conceptual way, then setting priorities is relatively easy, because every activity that comes across your desk, you just ask yourself, is this in support of one of my highest values, or is it something that needs to be delegated? Eventually, you'll whittle down the number of activities that you are directly involved with. Everything else will be delegated towards people who can do better than you, because it's not something that you want to do. And the quality of your life enhances then. The quality of your work enhances then. You tend to be more inspired and less prone to driving by willpower, less prone to burnout.
I like the prioritization around values. The only thing I'd probably add is that I would also include sort of the personal values, kind of be it, let's say, personal development, or be it the family, or the friendships, or the hobbies, because they could be someone's highest values. Someone doesn't make sort of space in their agenda for those things, they tend to very often be the ones that sort of fall off the cliff. But they might be precisely sort of the source for a creative input for the other values that are work-related. And in my personal life, for example, taking out an hour in the morning to meditate is absolutely non-negotiable. Even if someone requests a meeting at that time, for me it's non-negotiable, because I feel I wouldn't have anything else to offer to someone. And similarly, I think with the prioritization, what I also do with my clients is really I get them to look at their days and see what is their energy like on a daily basis. Do they have their sort of highest mental capacity more in the morning, in the evening, in the middle of the day? And that's when I get them to block out time for thinking time or strategic work, kind of also carve out slots in their diaries for email work or for the lower priority stuff, which is more linked to their own personal energy.
In the end, we all have to brush our own teeth at the end of the day, right? And so what are those things that we can delegate and that give us the best use of our time? And we could go down that, have our groceries delivered on an automatic schedule. Now, in the business sense, there's a lot of things, right? We can have virtual assistants, we can bring on team members, we can develop all of these other things, go into collaborational mode with other people that have different strengths than us. What do you want to add to that, Palma?
There will always be things in our lives that we don't like to do. The interesting piece is also what neuroscience says. It's like kind of what's costing our energy. It's not actually that we have to do that thing and we're doing it, but our mental resistance against it. That's the part that we can control, because unless we work for ourselves or we are millionaires, we will always have to go to certain meetings or work with certain people maybe. And there's always something, maybe someone hates brushing their teeth, but kind of it's really kind of the mindset around it. And when you notice yourself having kind of these thoughts like, oh my God, now I have to clean and I hate this and this is annoying, and now I'm in this meeting and it's wasting my time, I could do so many other things with my time. If one spots oneself in this sort of mental chatter, then the really best advice is, I think, to bring your attention rather to the sensations in your body or think about something positive, but do anything but sort of further reinforce sort of this negative mind chatter, because that's actually the draining thing. Same if someone wakes up at night. The problem is not the lack of sleep and lying awake, But the problem is the mind chatter about it. Oh my God, tomorrow I'm going to be tired and then I'm going to be bad at this important meeting. That's what's draining. Because I'm the meditation teacher, I have to bring in that mind training or mindfulness is really effective with raising the self-awareness around the mental chatter and allowing us to get into perspective towards it and step back and sort of drop it to a certain extent.
Thank you, Palma.
Nobody has the 100% of the skills you need to live a complete life. And some of those tasks in daily living need to be delegated. And there are experts in different fields like mindfulness and chiropractic and nutrition to whom you delegate some of that responsibility, and they can be your resource team. However, relying on them, giving them responsibility for life is different from relying on them to aid you in your own creation. So as a chiropractor, I can help people be more resourceful because my focus is the nervous system. In order for you to wake up in the morning, you have to create chemicals in your body, right? Body chemistry controls everything. There are approximately 37 trillion cells, and each of those cells is producing about 1 billion chemical reactions per second. So that's a magnificently large number of chemical reactions that need to be coordinated by the nervous system. As a chiropractor, my job is to make sure that communication happens at a level that's closer to 100%. If you can't communicate at a level that's closer to 100%, you're inefficiently burning your nervous system's energy. And that's energy that could go towards creative thought. It could go towards coordination in your work. It could go towards so many things besides just basic body functions. As a chiropractor, my job is to give people more nervous system resources that control and coordinate all of their other resources so that they can produce more in their life, feel more joy in their life. Everything that you've ever done required that kind of chemistry in the body. So all of that happens at a more efficient rate.
Thank you.
Well, I really like what Palma and Ryan have to say. It is about mindfulness and that self-awareness and that voice chatter, that head chatter. I have a good friend who often tells me, Julie, I get to do this and this. I get to clean my house today. I get to go pick up my grandchildren. I get to do whatever it is that might be a challenge or a stretch for her at that moment, because it is about what we tell ourselves. And the mind is such a powerful tool. In the nutrition world, people start working with me or making that decision to work with me. They are often faced with, she's going to tell me to give up this, this, and this. And I'm less about deprivation in diet and more about add the good stuff in. Add in more vegetables, add in more good fats, add in some quality protein, whether it's animal or plant protein. Give your body the stuff it needs to be able to function well. And inherently, some of those cravings go away. You know, longing for just a little bit more sugar here and there. Because when we are satisfied with a good meal, you know, we don't need that extra late night snack, if you will, to kind of round it out and find a way to position our bodies to support us and allow it to do the things we want it to do. We have to feed it well. But I'll go back to that. I get to feed my body well. I get to make healthier choices. I get to change a behavior that hasn't served me well. And isn't that a wonderful spot to be in?
Because I volunteer in a hospice every week. And so that really helps putting things into perspective. And I also volunteer in a mental health charity. Mm-hmm. And very often other people, they can't do those basic things that I'm able to do. And so it helps quite a lot with being grateful, actually, for even being able to go to a meeting, even being able, actually, I don't like to take the tube in London. But then when I'm in the hospice and there's some people who have MS and who can't really walk, and when they talk about sort of preparing for an hour to leave the house and how they have to sort of really figure out the best way to get down into the tube, and they know exactly where they get in, where they get out, and they have to walk sort of only the minimum way, then all of a sudden, the next time I go into the tube, I sort of really happily jump down the stairs because I have the freedom that my legs are still doing that. And it can be as basic as that, really.
It's amazing where we can find joy when we look for it.
Start by asking yourself the question, what do I really value? For me, I'll give you an example. My highest values are patient interaction, researching, traveling, and teaching. Right? Those are the four. If I was to boil it down to four, you can have more than four. You can have as many as you want. All of my activity is based around getting me towards one of those four things, because those are the things that pull me through inspiration. Now, if I have to do other tasks, if I'm stuck in a job that I don't like, or if I'm assigned to duties that I don't like, or a family thing comes up that I have to deal with that I don't like, that can be extraordinarily draining unless you connect that activity to one of your highest values. For example, I despise writing patient reports. However, I've come to love it because it's an avenue by which I get patients under care for longer periods of time, and I can see the changes in their life, have opportunities to teach them, gives me more opportunities to travel and teach and read. All of these activities that are uninspiring challenges to you, if you're stuck in a place where they're unavoidable, then the only thing you can do to avoid that burnout is to find a way to reframe your relationship with those challenges and see how they're supporting your highest values now. Because you might not think you're in the right job, but whatever job you're in, whether it's flipping burgers or your mailroom clerk, or even if you're a high-end CEO, if it's draining to you, you're in the right job right now because it's the launching point to get you into the next job, and on and up the ladder, wherever you need to be until you're living a life that is basically supportive of whatever those values are for you. The most important parts of your life are supported by every other area of your life. So the one thing would be start by defining really what's important to you.
We all know that we have areas of our diet that isn't as good as it could be, and that we change or we avoid making changes. And let's face it, change is difficult. So to think you're going to overhaul your diet in the next 3 days and make huge changes, that's an unrealistic expectation. So I encourage my clients and anyone listening out there to focus on your vegetables. Eat more vegetables. Really, that we get our nutrient from plant-based foods. When we can add a little bit more broccoli to our plate, a little bit more cauliflower, it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking. Go through the grocery store, find a fruit or a vegetable you haven't tried before, and make the commitment that this week, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to figure out another way to fix it, another way to cook it. They don't need to be huge undertakings. It's all about baby steps. Know that you want to really focus on the vegetables and find a way to add more in.
All right, Palma.
I'd also say it's all about habit creation, and usually every diet, every meditation practice always starts tomorrow. I'd say to everybody listening, really start right now and just check in with yourself for a moment. Really notice kind of what's currently dominating your field of awareness. Is it thoughts? If it's thoughts, and are they in the past, are they in the present, or are they in the future? Maybe it's feelings, what feelings are currently present, or maybe it's bodily sensations. What can you sense right now in your body? Or maybe you're sort of just drawn to certain sounds that you're hearing, then just notice those sounds for a moment. And then with mindfulness practice, the most important is really that you sit for practice every day. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. It's not so important how long you sit in the beginning. Even if you just sit for 1 minute, check in with yourself, watch a few of your breaths, that can be a good starting point. And I usually say to my clients, it's really a bit like sort of training for a marathon. You would also not sort of start with 45K immediately, but you would rather break down the distance by chunks. I would suggest to pick sort of a time and length that is maybe a little bit challenging. So maybe not 1 minute, but maybe 3 or 5, but not too challenging that you feel like, oh my God, my schedule is too full. I can't find those 10 minutes, so to speak. Just pick something that seems manageable on a daily basis. And then start doing it right now or tomorrow morning, and sort of do it together with something that you're already doing. Maybe when your alarm clock rings, that's the cue for you to sit up in your bed and do your 5 or 3 minutes of meditation.
So I was thinking we should bring in that concept of the work week in the United States, a typical work week, some of the European countries, and how that differs in the perspective of US busyness, if you will.
I used to live in Hong Kong. And when I moved to London and they said that they were busy, it felt that they worked just half as much as the people in Hong Kong. And they didn't complain about being busy. And then the people in the UK have longer work weeks than the people in Sweden, for example, but potentially the people in Sweden are much more productive than the ones in the UK. So I'm very interested actually in the concept in the States with 1 week holiday, or how much is it? And no maternity leave, how these things are possible.
Studies have shown that cultures, people, even companies here in the United States who institute a shorter work week or shorter work days wind up with employees who are just as productive or maybe even more productive than when they were working 40 or 50 hours a week. It really comes down to prioritization. Like I mentioned before, if you don't fill your time with high priority tasks, it'll fill itself with low priority tasks. So if you have an 8-hour workday, but your brain has a capacity to be productive for 6 hours, you're going to fill your workday with 2 hours of unproductive tasks. Encouraging people to have a shorter workday encourages their efficiency and gives them more free time later, and it actually works out in a really, really delightful way.
I mean, I haven't seen studies around that, but what I always find interesting is women who come back after maternity leave, who either work part-time or even work the whole day. But to me, they're usually the most efficient workers because they have no time to daddle around on the internet and surf around or kind of chit-chat or take a slow sort of moment. They really have their priorities. They know that they have to pick up the kids or want to be at home, and then they're working really efficiently.
In the United States, we struggle. We struggle with this concept of maternity leave and how much maternity leave is there. And if you're a small business, depending on the type of benefits you get, you might only get the government required 12 weeks of unpaid maternity leave to stay home. So we're in this really cool place in the United States, I think, where there's a lot of clashing coming together and we're figuring this out. By the way, that's one of the reasons I do what I do. It's because I want businesses to figure it out. We need business. We need business to make the world go round.
Well, and I don't think we value sleep enough. I mean, that's when our bodies rejuvenate. We can look at the different cycles in the body, and I don't know a lot about the Chinese medicine, but the organs have different rejuvenation times through the day, and particularly at night. That's when we rebuild cells. That's when our brain is able to shut down at a level that allows us to rejuvenate. And when we're constantly busy and short ourselves on sleep, we don't function well. And in, I think, the United States in particular, we wear sleep deprivation as a badge of honor. So we really need to focus on that restorative time in a day and get good sleep.
Yes.
I think it's coming because I read, I think, an article from the New York Times recently that sleep is big, big business. Kind of apps for sleeping, courses for sleeping, different types of beds that shift you around for sleeping, all different sorts routines, of stuff.
Not only apps, but gadgets that you can use.
Exactly.
Yeah. It is bold, to be clear. That's what I am taking away from this show. Whatever our clarity we need, whatever area of life we are putting our attention into requires clarity of what we want, what makes it important right now. And there are two words that I think can be easily interchanged, yet mean very different things. Being satisfied and being fulfilled.
Yeah, I would say that satisfaction is different from fulfillment in a couple important ways. One, satisfaction is pretty superficial, and it can simply be a way of signaling to yourself that you're done, right? I finished a meal, that was satisfying, I'm done eating for now until I'm hungry, right? Or I finished this task to a satisfactory level, I can push it off my desk, I'm done. It's very different feeling from fulfillment, because satisfaction only comes at the completion of or once you've given up a task. Fulfillment can be felt when you're performing a challenge that is inspiring to you. From the beginning to the very end, you can feel fulfilled. You don't have to finish it. So satisfaction is normally about the destination, and fulfillment is normally about the journey. If you're really being pulled by inspiration through challenges that you really enjoy, then you can be fulfilled on every step of the journey. You don't necessarily have to get there, so to speak, to feel fulfillment. And I think that's a kind of a key distinction.
Yeah, I really like, Brian, what you said. It's definitely a distinction. And I also like the fact that you're a language guy. Satisfaction is that moment in time, whereas the fulfillment is stepping back and having the awareness from an outward perspective or from a distance, being able to look back and say, this has been something that has made me complete, has helped me feel as though I'm doing the best I can do at this time, and it's pushing me toward that higher value, that higher goal that I've set for myself. Satisfaction is more that incremental step, whereas fulfillment is a much larger picture.
I very much like what both of you shared and agree, but I like to add a twist. So to me, satisfaction is also just linked to some external source, be it a meal, be it a task, a job, even a relationship, just something that comes to us from the outside. And it's usually also sort of time bound to a certain extent. We're never really satisfied for long. But then fulfillment to me is something that is really coming from within ourselves. And I will go as far as to say that our natural state is really completely whole and completely fulfilled. And we all have that within ourselves, and that is not dependent on any external source. Mm-hmm. And meditation, for example, is one way, or introspection. Some people do prayer to really sort of uncover everything that's sort of hiding that inner source of fulfillment. That's essentially who we are. And that's our birthright, and we should all reclaim it.
There were a lot of resources shared in this program that you will find in the program notes. Julie, Dr. Ryan, and Palma all shared some amazing information, not only about how to answer the question, what are the cues we're working too much and what do we do about it? Also, how do we get started? What do things actually mean? Where do we actually put priorities? And saying what we say and doing what we do and how it actually impacts us and either adds to our energy, gets us through, or takes away our energy. And that's really what it's all about. It's more than time management. It's more than sleep. It's more than nutrition. It's more than resourcefulness. It's more than mindfulness. It is a self-awareness. So thank you for listening today. Please subscribe to the Voice of Bold Business Radio and have our programs that air on Tuesday and Friday delivered directly to the platform of your choice, so we get in your queue to listen automatically as new ones are published. You can find all the program notes at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com/P57. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/P like program 57. Or just search Burn the Candle at Both Ends. Being a leader today, dealing with stress, how we deal with stress, what are the ways that we look at it, all those things help define what being a leader in today's active workplace is. So let's keep that conversation going. You are creating this definition with every action you take, with every thought that you think, and with everything that you do. And I want to hear from you after you take a closer look at when you're burning the candle at both ends.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.